America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, members and alternates, please introduce yourselves. Starting down the end, Marty.
Marty Kula, full regular member.
Terrence Fogg, alternate.
Kevin Sawyer, alternate.
George Carmichael, regular member.
Marsha Breckenridge, regular member.
Ross Thomas, regular member.
Phyllis Henderson, regular member.
People Journal, alternate.
Okay, so usually what I do is I read how the meeting is proceeding, and I will do that here, but I wanted to kind of briefly explain as we're having, excuse me, in the back.
I'm sorry.
We're having, well, this is a hearing for a special exception. And what you should know is the difference between a special exception and a variance. A special exception, according to our town rules, and most of the state rules are like this. There's certain criteria that the applicant must meet. And the criteria here is in the application. I think a special exception has 4 criteria, maybe 5. And you'll hear us go through them as we go along in this hearing. You'll hear the applicant speak to them as well. And basically the policy of the rule is if they meet all the criteria, the ZBA must give them the special exception. There's no if about it. We have to give it to them. Versus a variance where we have lots of leeway. We don't agree with certain things, we can deny the variance. You'll see that if you look at the picture, we sometimes do. But in this particular case, if the applicant meets all of the criteria for the town regulations, we have to approve it. So with that said, there are 3 parts to each case: the testimony, deliberative session, and decision. You'll hear us go through each one of those. The application and discussion during the testimony and the deliberative session provide the board with the information needed to address the 4 criteria listed in your application or in this application. Thus, leads to a decision to grant or deny the application. Once the testimony is closed, the 5 voting members, in this case we have a full, the 5 members are here, and we have also the 3 alternates. 5 voting members will deliberate. During the deliberative session, the audience may not address the board unless requested by the board members. So once we go into the deliberative session, we just ask you to just kind of hold back in any comments. If we're having a discussion and someone wants to add something, it's not a good time to do that. Okay? Are there any refusals tonight? None heard. Okay. Here's where this notice was posted. The ledger transcript, Town of Rindge website, in the town office. Per RSA 91A2-2, we only have to put it in 2. Usually they see a place with the town website will suffice, or you can put it into a newspaper of general circulation. We did it both. Kevin Sawyer will read the case before the board. Someone 205. Okay.
Case number 2025, map 7, lot 87-3-1, 176 Perry Road, Ray Tech Construction for a special exemption as described in Article 15, Section B of the Rindge zoning ordinance and Section 4G of the Rindge wetlands ordinance.
Peter Letourneau will summarize the zoning and wetlands ordinance.
Zoning ordinance, Article 15, Section B. The Board of Adjustment shall approve those special exceptions provided by the ordinance, subject to the following criteria. If after presentation, including a review of the plan, showing the location layout, a scale drawing, the location of any signs and utilities, the board, in its judgment, finds that the use will not create an excessive traffic congestion, noise, or odors not intended to reduce the value of surrounding property. Adequate sewage and water facilities and sufficient off-street parking and will preserve the attractiveness of the town, said use shall be granted.
And then also we have the wetlands ordinance, Section 4G.
Okay, streets, roads, access ways, utilities of essential to a permitted use of land not within the Wetlands Conservation District, if so located and constructed as to a minimize and detrimental impact of such use upon the wetlands. This includes the driveways, the single-family houses, and roads that are used exclusively to gain access to the property or facilities such streets, roads, access ways, and driveways shall either be one pervious or two impervious. Shall be constructed in such a way to collect all surface water runoff and divert it to an area or areas at least 50 feet distance from vegetated wetland, or 50 feet from surfaces, waters using best management practices in the event dredging, filling, draining, or otherwise altering the surface configurations of surface water or vegetated wetlands is required. Approval must be obtained from the State Wetlands Bureau after review by the Rindge Conservation Commission. The special exception must be obtained in accordance with Section 6 of this ordinance.
Thank you, Pete. Members sitting on this case will be myself, George Carmichael, Chair, Marshall Breckenridge, Vice Chair, Phil Stenson at the very end, Marty Kula at this end, and Russ Stern is here in the green. Mr. Rao, are you ready to present your case?
I'm actually here to present.
Your name, please?
Josh Charlton, I'm the graduate engineering.
Can you spell your last name for the
Yep.
minutes, please?
JOSLYN. It is in their own case spot. Everybody's. Yep, so like I said, my name is Josh Charlton. I'm with Grass Engineering representing Carrioff on its lot here. It's map 7, lot 87-3-1. Basically what we have here is a 17.6 acre lot with frontage here on Prairie Road, and there are wetlands that run down here across the center of the lot, and also a power line easement that cuts off this corner here. So it makes development of that lot up front near the road really undesirable and super tight and build the house that he wanted to. So we're here proposing a wetlands crossing here along the thinnest section of the wetlands. They were delineated by Skip Action, Carl Action, the wetland scientists for this, and then surveyed by us. So basically what we're proposing to do is to raise the grade at the wetland about 7.5 feet from where it exists. And we're going to be putting 2 boulder retaining walls along the side of the driveway there with 2 to 1 side slopes up to the driveway itself. Yeah, I also have a copy that makes it easier.
I just figured I'd hand it out to this part of the audience so they can take a look at what you're presenting.
But anyway, what raising it up in the middle here allows us to do is to construct berms along this side and this side of the driveway that will shed wells, and we'll be able to discharge all of that stormwater outside the 50-foot buffer into plunge pools, river plunge pools. We're also proposing 2 24-inch by 40-foot long HDPE culverts that are going to run into the driveway to keep the hydraulic connection there. It was recommended by the Conservation Commission to have them be a flat bottom, so we're embedding them by 6 inches, and that's going to create that natural environment along the bottom. The 6-inch embedment will still allow us to have the 100-year storm pass under those 2 culverts, and that's a 25% embedment. We're also proposing silt fence along with straw walls along the perimeter of the crossing, and then that's before any construction starts. And then once those walls, the 4-foot walls get built up, we're going to be putting straw walls along the walls to do the rest of the construction on top. And we're proposing to basically end the pavement at a minimum at the 50-foot buffer zones, and then it can turn to gravel from there, but we want it paved at least within the 50-foot buffer zones. And that's going to allow no erosion into the swales, and it should keep everything cleaner. I can speak to these special exception criteria a bit. That is, the use will not create excessive congestion noise or odors. This construction is for a single family home, so it's not gonna be producing any crazy excess traffic. It would be the same use that it would be if we were able to construct outside or upfront, rather. Use will not reduce the value of surrounding properties. Again, it's a single family home that's gonna be going out here in the larger upland area. That's going kind of down here. So all house and everything will be set back a bit. We don't believe it's gonna be reducing the value of any surrounding properties. The adequate sewage and water facilities and off-street parking. Again, there's plenty of good upland space once we get through the wetlands crossing. And there's gonna be plenty of room for septic systems out there. And then the proposed use will preserve the attractiveness of the town. It's similar to all the surrounding uses. There's single family houses around there. It's not gonna have any real impact on the attractiveness of the town. With that, I'll open up any questions the board has. I know we have to go through the New Hampshire Wetlands Bureau, so we get from you, that'll be an expedited minimum.
Yes. I seem to remember someone saying that the original plan, I think it was someone in the planning board, that the original plan was to have this closer to the road, and not cross the wetland.
Yeah, that was the original intent. I think I actually,
I'm just curious why you decided to move it back.
well,
It seems like an awful lot of money to put it in for a single family.
basically, if you're looking at this plan, it's really tight. So the corner of the house that you'd be able to build there is essentially right on the 50-foot buffer, and you have to grade. You can see it's pretty steep grading there, so you have to grade down pretty close to the wetlands down around there. This corner is also right on the corner of the side and front setback lines. And that would put your leach field out front. And it would basically just create a situation where you'd have a really steep slope coming off the back of the house because you can't grade it flat out because of the wetlands right behind there. And you have the power lines that run right through here, so it just felt like a better use of the land to build out back where there's a lot of it. Along with that, I believe he wants to build a bigger house footprint, which just wouldn't fit here.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions, comments? On the board? Anybody from the audience?
I do. I live at,
State your name.
I'm Ronnie Gillette, 27 Perry Road. This is about
I'm sorry, could you please for the minute spell your last name?
Hulettete.
Thank you.
Look, I'm the butter of this project. I'm curious, I can't really see it on the map where my driveway starts off this blueprint. And where your driveway comes in on the Perry Road.
I am not exactly sure where your driveway starts.
But you can't miss it, it's only 50 feet away.
So this house here?
I'm at 27 Perry Road, that's correct.
I honestly, we didn't locate your driveway in the survey, so I don't know exactly where your driveway comes.
So what I'm after is, what buffer do I have from your road to my property line?
Well, take the setback right in the town of Rindge. I think you can actually put a road right up against the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can clear right to the property line.
What's that?
You can clear right to the property line.
So, that's a concern, obviously.
Yes, it is for me, yeah.
It's away from the property, even though it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. We're coming in 30 feet off the property line, and then it sweeps to the right. So the main roadway, actually, if this is your property over here, the main roadway crossing is like 200 feet away.
So my question, another question I had, George, what stops this from becoming a development after this house gets put in?
Well, typically, it's road frontage that prevents this from happening. So you have enough road frontage for one home, is that right?
For one, it's 250 feet exactly of
Yeah.
road frontage on this lot, so it's only a single family driveway.
Well, there's a development on, was it Mark Road on 119? And they built, well, they had 250 feet of road frontage. Now, how many houses they built behind that?
I don't know. that's not our call, really. It's a planning board decision that allows those to occur. And we're here to hear this
Okay.
particular case, which is 50-foot frontage.
So my questions will have to go to the planning board, I would
If
assume.
he decides to put other homes in there, which I'm not hearing that's what he's planning.
Along with that, this crossing wouldn't be adequate for a roadway. It's only an 11-foot wide driveway to keep the crossing minimal, and you need at least 20 feet wide pavement to build a road. And you have to double the whole crossing.
State your name.
Builder,
Tyler, again, your last name?
Builder, B as Bravo, ILLITER. Yes, sir. So you're only building the crossing to support one lane? Yeah, at this time, yeah. Just wanted clarification. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Anybody from the board? Pretty straightforward. What's that way to me? Motion to move into deliberative session? David, okay, I actually skipped over one important part, and that is the letter from the Conservation Commission. The ZBA will typically look for, when it comes to wetlands, the ZBA will look for the Conservation Commission's really, their thoughts on this project. And David, your group gave us a really positive, gave us positive feedback. Is that not correct?
Yeah, we've heard the rules of procedure, anything dealing with wetlands variance or special exception. The board adjustment goes to the Conservation Commission, and I rendered in a opinion based on that discussion. So we met with Josh and Terry. We had seen this when it was presented to the planning board, because the planning board does the same thing, sends us the plans. We had noted that both lots had very small building envelopes. I think per the subdivision regs, it's like a 3,000 square foot minimum envelope, any place a house can go. So,
But just for the record, we're not talking about the second one. We're only
Right,
considering this particular.
so it was very tight. I mean, 3,000 square feet today, pretty tight lot. And we had commented, watch out for the buffer. The well was in the buffer. So this plan came forward. It does need a crossing. It is a minimal crossing. The slope above the walls is a little steeper than some designs. Sometimes you go 3-to-1. We have looked at others that have gone to 2-to-1. It actually makes the impact smaller. So it's a steeper slope on the side. You would think that you would prefer a pervious surface such as gravel, but over a crossing, because the runoff has to go 50 foot to each side or to one side out of the buffer, we actually prefer a impervious or a paved surface. And these are going to have berms or curves to contain that water, so it doesn't run off the side, it goes outside the buffer. So that's our big concern. Everything meets the criteria. We did ask them to make sure it stays outside of 50 foot and to embed the culvert so we have a natural bottom. You really don't want to have a man-made bottom. The critters can't swim, crawl, or creep, walk through it. So we like to see, last time we like a box culvert. It's not practical here. So it's got 2 culverts. It's made for 100-year storm. It does get it off the road, it's a sidebar. It was tight before. It met all the criteria before, but it was tight. So this is a better fit to protect the buffer, because they won't be grading in the buffer for the house. They just grade for the crossing. So that's
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for David before we go into the deliberative session? Do I have a motion?
You named one earlier.
Do I have a motion to go into deliberative session?
I so moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
I
Okay. I mean, again, as I mentioned when we started, this is pretty forward to me. I don't know if anybody else feels differently. But, people have to have using their property, hence the reason why the state has across wetlands and get to lots very similar to this. I would like to make a motion that we approve the special exception. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Special exceptions approved. You have 30 days before you do anything. I mean, you can have your butters or anybody else, in fact, can appeal this. So just giving you a heads up, I'm sure you'll. Okay. Thank you, and you'll be getting a decision letter in the mail sometimes. Yeah, nice job. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Any other business that may come before the board? I put out the June meeting minutes approval. Assuming everybody got a chance to read them. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes as written? I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. It's approved. And then we have the second reading of the amendments to the application for the rules of procedure. We talked about those last month, and I had printed those out.
I have a question.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That was it for the presentation for what's going on with that, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. First, I'll give it to zoning board meeting.
Sure, sure.
Again. Again.
Oh, watch online, it's fine.
Yes, me too.
Okay. So, you saw the wording that we put in there, right? I mean, it's typically a second reading. And why don't we, I was just gonna say,
Yeah.
I'll read them out.
Yeah.
Include language to the rules of procedure to put the ZBA applications to show the following. And this is copying other towns that do the same. The ZBA is authorized to retain services of consultants, investigative or legal services, and to impose reasonable fees upon the applicant for expenses of consultant services or investigative services, review of documents and other matters that may be required by a particular application. Such fees shall be subject to provisions of RSA 673-16, RSA 676:5, 4, RSA 675-5A, and other applicable laws. All expenses shall be paid in full prior to issuing the ZBA's final written decision. Second reading, everybody approved?
What do we have?
What's that?
What's in place now?
That's written into our rules of procedures, it's not written into our application. And there's a couple of things missing in our rules of procedure, like the actual RSA. It says you must pay, it doesn't have that.
Just
So
putting
we
this-
want to put them together so that they, okay? And so we run into a situation like we did with many other cases where, someone decides to sue the town, the ZBA can hire an attorney, or I can hire an engineer, can hire just about anybody they want that is an expert. And the applicant must pay. If they don't get a written decision. It says. So this really comes from Steve Buckley, who's also he's on the Hampshire Municipal Association, but he's also a member of the ZBA one other town in Hampshire. And that's precisely how they run it. So, anyhow, do I have a motion to approve them second time around?
I know we approve them.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. So these will enter into our application and into the rules of procedure. We'll adjust what they both the same. And let's see.
We haven't had an issue. The only concern I would have in all is that sometimes tools get used for just to squash growth or something.
Well, because the reason why we have to look at this is the last time we had a problem, we had to, ask the selectmen for permission. And our, the attorney that I spoke to said, you shouldn't have to do that. You should write this in rules of procedures to circumvent that. The only time the selectmen would get involved is if these people don't pay. And then whoever we hire goes after the town. You know, I mean, then it gets into that, but
I think it's purely financial.
yeah, if we don't issue them a decision, they can't really move on anything. We won't issue the decision until they pay.
So like I said, I don't, you know, everything you do can all be
Exactly.
tweaked a little bit or loophole a little bit, whatever, and then used to good, bad end. That's why you get a board.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all I had. Does anybody else have anything else before we make a motion to adjourn?
I do. Start looking for, folks for the open position there.
Well, I think we've been doing that all along. And
I'll call Franklin Pierce, but I'll say, you know, between this meeting and next, I'll call and try to reach out to at least one additional person.
well, that's a great recommendation, Russ. I like that. If each one of us kind of just
Just one.
think, that's one person. And,
That's it.
like that. The only concern I have with any student at Franklin Pierce is that they show up in a certain month and they leave in a certain month.
It would be explained that it's a year round.
Yeah.
So,
And if they're from Connecticut or something, you know, it becomes very difficult. So, but, you know, I like the recommendation. Okay. Anybody else?
Question, I mean, I know my granddaughter is still kind of, don't know what she wants to do with her life totally, but would that be any kind of conflict of interest?
It might. I'll give you an example of why, and I think it would, I personally think it would. We had a situation where we had two new alternates, and that was sent to that person, and that person went to her boss. Her boss said, no, you can't do that. We have to get approval from the selectmen. You see what happens? We don't have control over that person. That person reports to the select.
But I mean, not an issue as much as of my granddaughter as,
Not for you. If you're, you know, comfortable with.
no, I mean, I'm saying as far as a conflict of interest. I mean granddaughter period, maybe a different granddaughter.
Because you're on the board, is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's.
Right.
You know, back in the day, Janie Cardullo was the secretary and two board members.
Well, that's different, right? So she's also an appointment.
Yeah.
So if it comes to that, we'll certainly deal with it. I think if we got any else, I don't think it's gonna happen, but if it does happen, I'll have some concerns that I just shared with you. And that is the path of, you know, it's a reporting path, and that becomes a problem. As I just described, there's one example.
But I mean, you're talking Victorian specifically.
Yeah.
I was thinking not necessarily as far as.
No, I know you were, I know
As
you
far
were,
as-
yeah, I know. I think it would be easy. We just need a warm body, you know?
It's a little bit to it.
I know. Well, there is a little bit too, quite right.
Because it becomes legal, we
And
don't know what
I'll
goes
tell
into
you,
the act.
I'll tell you, just so you can hear it, I was away, I was up near the Canadian border in Maine, and I came back on Sunday only to find that we hadn't posted our meeting notice, and we had Monday to do that posting. I had to call the town administrator and say, why isn't that there? Oh, I forgot. You need to remind me of this stuff. So
What's the rate we're offering?
I don't know what they're, Tom, maybe you can answer that. I heard there was a jump in that rate.
I thought it
There's
was
a citizen
$25.
tonight.
Well, you're also a selectman, and you said in that meeting.
I'm not gonna,
Okay, so.
Comment on
You
anything.
happened to sit in that meeting, said the selectmen approved $25 an hour for this person, but they were trying to circumvent our applicant by putting their own applicant in. I would argue that we would be able to afford 25%.
If I'm gonna call and start asking around, I just want to
You
know
need
what
to know.
to say.
And it's about 30 hours a month,
Well, it's
20 to 30.
it's 25 hours a month. And the idea would be that if we did find somebody and they were looking for more hours, then we might, offer to give David 15 hours a month. That person would end with 40 hours.
That's finding good candidates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we
can deal with that. And there's and if David, it gets into a really messy situation. If David does, if we do allow the person to report to the Conservation Commission, then they technically report to the selectmen, right, not to ZBA. And it gets messy that way, but we can deal with that when we get somebody that says, I really am interested in this, and I would also like to help out the Conservation Commission. We can work that out with the selectmen, our board, everybody else.
But the posting and meeting deadlines is critical, because we could have not at a meeting
If
or
it happens
something.
again,
It
I'm
goes
just gonna
unposted.
cancel the hearing, that's not gonna be good.
So it's not just the minutes.
No, I-
There's some
And
administrative.
I'll say to the board, it's not my job to do that. It's not, I mean, I haven't, it gets old after a while. And it's not my job to remind people that signed up to do it. So,
No, we got a candidate.
Excuse me.
go ahead, Mark.
Listen, we were talking about conflicts of interest, would it be a conflict of interest to be representing multiple boards?
It may, I think we can cross that bridge when we get to it, right?
Yes, I thought.
I can't come up with a reason why it would be, but we could certainly talk about it, we would have to talk about it as a board. Before we make a decision to hire someone, right? And the board would make that decision.
So, are you talking about like,
Sharing with the conservation.
would that person then get like a full-time gig at that point?
No, it's
Well, they
40
would-
hours per
Yeah,
month,
per
per
month.
month, 10 hours a week.
Because we don't dance to anybody, we shouldn't dance to anybody else's tune, and, if they're just a thought.
No, it's something we have to discuss. If
There
we
there
get
might
to that.
be, there might be synergy there too, that could get that clean from, so it wouldn't be worth sounding out.
And the person sitting in that role is gonna be present during the executive session, which is a public. I think there's
All
some
depends
things
if you're representing the town, or if you got a motive, that's basically what it boils down to.
We've seen that in the past where we had a secretary that worked in the office that would only do certain things that were approved by her boss at that time, right? Not by the chair of the ZBA. We don't need to go down that. So anyhow, that's it. That's all I got. Does anybody, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to get moved.
Huh?
One more thing.
Go ahead.
Why can't I have correspondence from now on?
Yeah, that's the other thing they forgot, is to include you. I did send an email to Lori today, and she had no idea that you were on board. So, well, even though they're the ones that did the paper. But that's okay, that wasn't easy for the book, right? We can fix that. I think we will going forward. But I think going forward, and Tom, this is really aimed at the selectmen. I think if someone signs up to help the board, then they need to help the board. And they shouldn't have to be reminded every single week, is you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. If the person is going to help, then they need to take over the checklist from A to Z. If they're not, that's okay, then it becomes good. If they're not going to help, I can't keep my thumb on the pulse of this every single month. Make sure that people are contacting the newspapers and things like that. I can't do that. It's not my job. It's not fair. It's not fair.
That's
But I
a job.
I haven't
Do it.
either, so.
But if you sign up to do it, if you don't, then that's another thing. We'll have to figure out another way. But that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn? No?
Aye.
Citizen speaking here, Tony's.
Yes, go
I've
ahead.
done work in a number of other towns.
Yep.
And they have a central repository with a secretary like you're describing that serves all the boards equally when it's needed. And I think if you want to discuss that, the way you just discussed it to me at this video recording for the world to see, you should come to the selectmen and tell the town in person, not to me as I'm sitting here videotaping
Well,
you.
for the record, Marcia and I have sent a letter to the selectmen signed by both of us concerning that one particular topic, and we have not got a return email.
George, I'm not going to discuss it.
Well, then don't bring that up, Tom, unless you understand that
But
we
you're,
did bring
you're
up those
pointing
concerns.
fingers at the select
Thank you.
board and you're not doing it in front of them. Thank you.
We do send an email to the selectmen, did we not, Mike?
But I have a letter here.
Sam,
It was pertaining to this particular subject. The only response for the camera that we got was one selectman, Bob, who responded to this, and he, in his statement, he said, I doubt very much you will get a response from the other two selectmen. Is that
I
all
will
you
go
had?
ask for the letter, George.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I had one from Phil, we just lost it.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion? Adjourn. Have a good
Right.
Thank you. I'm glad it was for the whole world to hear.
Martha, you want to go on to teacher's pen?
Oh,
No, I mean, you can still need it.
no.
It's actually my dad.